and you can come back an infinite number of times in any particular lifetime. Or you can go on. You can say, you know what, I feel complete. I feel good about that experience. I want to now move into the experience of spirituality, and I'm not going to return to that particular incarnation or expression. So it depends on how complete you feel. If you feel complete, remember what I said to you about 3 lessons back, that enlightenment is defined as completion. Completion is a sense or a feeling that for that particular expression, for that particular moment, for that particular outpicturing of divinity, I feel complete. And so you go on. Back into the realm of spirituality. Or if you don't feel complete, you know, I want to say a few more things, or clean it up with my son, or work out this issue, that whatever it is, or overcome that particular proclivity that I had. I never really solved my own issue of impatience, you know, or whatever it might be. You want to use that lifetime to finish that, then God says, the universe says, life says, no problem. And just like that, you're back into your physicality, and you have an opportunity to finish what you would like to finish. And you will say to people, I had a, you ready now? Near-death experience. By the way, if you think I'm making this up, talk to people, talk to doctors. You'll if you have a good long talk with a doctor who's been in practice for a number of years, he will tell you that he has met patients who swear to you that they died and came back, if you please, and that they had a near-death experience. So this is a very, very common experience among people, and not unusual to be talking in these terms as we look at the 3 phases of death. This is all part of our final lesson here, which is called reunification, so that you can understand intellectually what we're talking about here. I want to also conclude this lesson by taking a look at the 5 attitudes of God, because if we're going to really seriously consider reunification as a possibility, that is, if we're going to seriously consider that it's possible for us to live life as God, we should at least take a passing glance at the 5 attitudes of godliness, which were given to us in conversations with God. What a miracle it was for me to receive these descriptions of God from God, God describing itself to me in human terms, using human characteristics and emotions that I could really grasp and understand. So God said, look, I'm always joyful. Well, what would it be like for you to be always joyful? Well, you know what? It's understandable that God would be always joyful. What would God be not joyful about? I mean, God is everything, the all in all, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. There's nothing that God wants, needs, requires, or demands. I mean, who wouldn't be joyful in those conditions? So for me to live my life as God, I would also embrace the notion of being eternally joyful. That means that I am happy with whatever is occurring, that I am eternally joyful no matter what. Yes, it's a very high level of mastery, but you know what? I actually know a couple of people in my life who live like that. One is a lady named Byron Katie, who I've come to know, and I adore her. And Katie wrote a book. She calls herself by her last name. Katie wrote a book, as you may know, called Loving What Is. I've referred to it before in this course. And Katie really lives that. That is, she steps into an expression of self where she is eternally joyful. Or if not eternally joyful, she's accepting. She's constantly accepting, which is, by the way, the third of the characteristics of God. The guy, I'm always joyful, loving, and accepting. So Katie is eternally accepting. She lives this way. I don't, she does. And I acknowledge her mastery in that regard. Accepting of whatever is going on. Whatever, she calls it, whatever is. That's what is. I call it the isness. And that's how one stays in the place of being joyful. That one is, in a sense, okay with whatever is. I said I knew two people who live that way. Eckhart Tolle is another one, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Eckhart. And he, I also observe, lives in that place of totally okayness, total okayness with right now. He calls it the power of now. And that's Eckhart's formula. That's his way of staying totally joyful, by staying totally here on this plane of experience. Not back there in yesterday, not out there in tomorrow, but right here, right now. And so for Eckhart, the tool that has worked for him is to stay present in the moment of now, in the eternal moment of now, and not worry about what might have been, what could have been, or what is going to be, your past or future, but just be in the present. And when you are in the present becomes a present from God. That is, it becomes a gift of indefinable proportion. And you are constantly joyful. The first characteristic of God. The second characteristic of God is that God is also loving, always loving. And there would be no reason for God not to be loving, because God is constantly joyful. So God, this is important. And if you want to step into your life as God, you really need to know this. You really need to kind of get it. God is eternally loving, which means that God is never unloving or hateful or angry or upset or anything but loving. This, I know, runs counter to the teaching of many of the world's great religions, which insist that there are times when God is not loving, God is angry, God is disappointed or hurt or upset, or even, if you please, vengeful. Or as religions would say, God isn't vengeful, God is simply just. God is a just God. So religion would argue that the word vengeful is not fair, that the word we need to use is God is just. Like a judge in a courtroom, when a judge says guilty, 30 days, the judge is not vengeful, but he's simply administering justice. Okay, fair enough. I'm not going to argue the point. But the real question is, can God become angry? Can God become angry enough to cause you to experience everlasting damnation in the eternal fires of endless suffering that we are calling hell? Is that what a loving God would do? Well, even that is being preached by some religions. Some religions would say, yes, that's the epitome of love. The epitome of love is to administer justice, even if it's hurtful or harmful to that person. And the old saying, this hurts me more than it hurts you. Well, I'm sorry. That's not the understanding that God has given me of who and what God is. God has said to me that God is eternally loving and would only do what love would do, and love would never cause pain or suffering to another, not even in the name of justice. Not even in the name of justice would you deliberately hurt and cause endless suffering to another living being. One who loves in that way is obviously eternally accepting, the third of the 5 attitudes of godliness. So God is accepting, that is, embracing unconditionally. Acceptance is an unconditional embracing of what is true, of what is so. So that God is loving, joyful, and accepting. And we are invited to be accepting, loving, and joyful as well, as we experience ourselves stepping into our life as God.